Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we play through the Fallout games and talk about them. We're playing through Fallout 3. I'm Cameron.
I'm Michael.
Michael, last time we played through, what was it? The Crotch?
Mm-hmm.
We did that one.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, we played through Operation Miami, of course,
Mm-hmm.
of Ohio, importantly. You don't want to get those two confused.
Mm-hmm. Growing up in Eastern Indiana, it was a thing that I learned early.
Yeah. University of Miami, Operation of Miami?
Mm-hmm.
Or no, of Ohio. And this time we are, or not are, because we already did it. We have played through Broken Steel.
Blue Steel.
That's right. The more famous, honestly, of the 5 or 6 very famous Todd Howard approaches to the Falloutiverse. Yeah, I particularly liked it when Hansel showed up.
Yeah.
That's
No,
my
they
favorite part.
they did such a good job modeling Owen Wilson's face.
No, this is the interesting part. Most people would say, "Oh yeah, Owen Wilson, that's the thing to remember." But a big part of Blue Steel is Jamie Lee Curtis,
Mm,
and we often forget that.
that is true.
We did this Broken Steel thing, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, do you have the background info? I didn't look up the background info before this. I thought about it, then I made hot chocolate instead.
Well, I mean, what do you mean by background info, I
Well,
guess?
sometimes we talk about when they came out and, like what date they came out. Did you look that up? I
Okay,
can do it
yeah,
right now.
no. So Broken Steel is, as you may be able to tell by when this is coming in the series of our show, the third piece of DLC that was released in May of 2009.
Okay.
So like I can't remember when when the Crotch was released. So this is maybe like 2 months after that, I think, something like that. This is
Yeah, I think
also
so.
the DLC, quite importantly, that changes the ending of the main game, ups the level cap to 30, and then adds a whole bunch of new perks and stuff that you can have past level whatever it was that it stopped in the main game, something weird like 20.
It also adds a bunch of enemies, like high-level enemy types as well,
Mm-hmm.
which I encountered some of. I don't know, what level are you? Because I think this is going to characterize the rest of what's going on here. What level are you in the game currently?
Well, you'll be surprised at how little this actually impacts my play experience, but I was probably about like by the end of this, I'm probably like level 26, I think.
So yeah, I guess that as we get higher up in the levels, the gap is kind of closing a little bit. I think I'm level. Actually, I don't know. Maybe you have always been like 2, 3 levels higher than me, but I think I'm around level 22 or 23 here.
Mm-hmm.
But I started at level 18, I think. So
Wow.
I gained a lot of levels during this thing. This DLC starts at the very end of the main game,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like you go to sleep instead of dying like you did in the original game. You go to sleep at the end of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and you wake back up a couple weeks
You're
later.
like, man, I sure am exhausted from all this saving the wasteland. And you put on a big hat with like a little pom pom on the end, and you stretch and lay down.
And in the rest of the game, it's just a sort of Little Nemo style, like think of all the things that happened. Oh yes, a talking tree and Pittsburgh, and I went into a VR simulation. All the dreamland, of course. We wake up here, and the Brotherhood of Steel are like, "Hey, guess what? There's more game to play."
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the setup, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
this is as much plot as we're gonna get.
Yeah, because they basically say, "Hey, guess what? You thought you killed the Enclave, but you didn't kill the Enclave. The Enclave are still bebopping around, and while you've been asleep this whole time, we've been chasing them around the wasteland, and now we finally found out because they're still organizing some way, and we don't know how. So we're gonna figure it out, and you should go with our dude to go figure that out." and that's like the first. Tristan, I think, is the guy that you're following here.
Well, specifically, yeah, like what you just described is you wake up, it's Elder Lyons who's like leaning over you.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells you to go talk to one of the scribes named Scribe Rothschild, and Rothschild is the one who explains all the stuff that you just said about how there's still Enclave around, and somehow they're talking to one another, but we don't know how, and we've narrowed it down. There might be some sort of communications relay here, and it's worth pointing out that the game makes you walk over with him to like a big map on the wall while he's explaining this, and he's saying, like here and here and here, as if he's pointing to things on the map, but he's not. And the map has this weird 1950s techno gadget on it that's like moving around in it. It's like a big magnifying glass, and it's sort of auto scrolling, and it magnifies things on the map. And you would think maybe they would animate that so that it actually points to what he's talking about. But no, as he's saying here and here and here, it's just showing you random stuff. And it's very confusing because you're locked in place and have to look at it. But nevertheless, you are correct. He sends you off to meet Tristan, who is hanging out outside of like something, like he's near what is some sort of like communications relay or satellite network that the Enclave appear to be using.
So I guess two things. Number one, I was just looking as you were talking to figure out the name of someone in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a recent wiki activity, and one person has 13 hours ago now went through and updated the information about the countries Romania,
Mm-hmm.
the country Germany, and the country Austria on the Fallout 3 wiki. Just in case you're curious about how Germany shows up in the Fallout 3 wiki, this person's got you covered in the year 2021.
I'm so glad that you saw this too and pointed it out, because I was also looking at it.
It's weird. Shout out to you, person who's updating all these European countries, because you definitely listen to this show. But yeah, so we get there, and basically something that's part of that conversation too, I guess, is that he says, yeah, Liberty Prime just whips ass up and down the countryside constantly, and so we haven't really had to work too hard.
Turns out giant robots are pretty effective.
Yeah, they're like, Pokemon style, super effective.
Yeah.
Even.
I mean, especially if there's only one of them and you own it.
That's the thing about weapons, though. I heard this little ditty. How does it go? Bump, 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 bump. War never changes. Bump, 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 bump. If you got a bigger robot, bump, 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 till somebody else bump, 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 gets a bigger robot. Bump, 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 bump. That's
just the Gundam theme.
I was thinking it played on the radio during. I think that's in Fallout 4 that plays on the radio. But yeah, it turns out if you got the biggest gun on the planet, that you're going to be pretty good until you meet someone else with a bigger gun. And so this mission is very similar to the one where you do the stuff in going to Project Purity. I just couldn't pull that name. Where you're going to Project Purity and you're just following the robot. You shared a very funny video, I think, on Twitter of that robot just annihilating you with a nuclear weapon thrown like a football.
Mm-hmm. This has this entire sort of segment has a great kind of it's a good example of what I think is sort of the problem with these scripted sequences in this game, and I think Bethesda games more generally, where I'm kind of, living through a cutscene, but it's never clear to me like where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to be doing. So things like my big friend the robot can just destroy me because I'm walking too close to him.
It really does, I'm surprised that you haven't written about this in some way, or maybe you're thinking about it, because this seems like a real Michael Lutz kind of question, right? Is that it creates like a 3D theatrical space in which there is no blocking for one person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like like you, the player, are the understudy who has never seen this play before. And you're just like wandering around being like, Horatio, my stars and garters, ba 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 ba. Like it's fat. I think you're right. Yeah, they're like, you can be in a position that wrecks the game. Like you in that video, you get like knocked onto the ground.
Yeah.
You need to not be on the ground in that section. You need to be like on that cliffside. So
I don't know if this is going to be in the footage that I sent you, but I did this a couple of times. Another version of this was I ran ahead of Liberty Prime and I got up onto the cliff that's in front of the bunker where you're supposed to go, and I waited for Liberty Prime to break it open, and then I ran inside and like tried to open the door to get into the thing and like sequence break it, but that didn't work out. I just got exploded.
I also did that, or I didn't get exploded. But as soon as he because what he does, it's pretty cool looking. It's well animated and it looks rad. Like there's a bunker built into the side of the cliff, and he just Liberty Prime just rolls right up to it and punches into it, punches a big hole in it, which is cool. And so as soon as he did that, I like zipped up there, right, and like ran in and tried to open the interior door, but it's like, you need a key. You can't go in there. You need a key to do it. And so I turned around and walked back outside, and wouldn't you know it, an orbital strike came out of nowhere. A Chinese orbital strike, Liberty Prime says, and blows up Liberty Prime.
Yeah.
Like blows his feet off.
Yeah, and his like head like goes flying, and it's just lying there in the grass.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real strange end to the Liberty Prime saga, right? It's a real clear example of like, oops, we wrote ourselves into a corner.
We gotta get rid of this robot.
Yeah.
We made it's really the RoboCop problem, right?
Yes.
They were like, we made a weapon that it's too good at its job. We got to get rid of this thing. But yeah, so there's like an orbital strike that appears and takes out Liberty Prime, and it kind of sets up the scenario, and you like go inside and deal with some more Enclave people and kind of clear out the bunker. But the real thing that it points to, right, is that it demonstrates that like someone else has got a bigger robot, and that robot shoots missiles and it lives in space.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to deal with that, I guess.
Yep. This whole thing is quite boring because in terms of like development of plot, everything we just said could have been done in 5 minutes, but this takes forever because you go into the building and it's just filled with Enclave soldiers, and you just keep going upstairs and fighting floor after floor of Enclave soldiers, and there's not really like lore happening here. There's not a little story that's in this place. You get your terminal at the end, and it's literally just like an Enclave terminal that you download some nonsense like scrambled information from, and then the mission is over. You have to go back.
Yeah, there's really no story content to the entirety of this DLC, to be frank. And I guess I should just say this here. I think this is the worst experience I've had in a Fallout game. And it might be, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not, playing up for effect. Well, maybe I am a little bit, but not really. Not that much. This is one of the worst gaming experiences I've ever had. Just period.
I think I'd agree. Like, I hated this.
Same. I was up until last night because I read the little description about it, right? And it said something to the effect of like, Broken Steel is about the same length as the other DLCs, and I played through all of those in like 2 hours or so, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And at 2 a.m. last night, after I'd been playing this for 3.5 hours, I thought, I'm not having a very good time playing this anymore. This is not where I wanted to be, because I thought, I'll play an hour last night and I'll play an hour in the morning, and then we'll be ready to go. But no, it really wasn't that, because after this, you go back to the Brotherhood of Steel and they say, "Oh, dang, we gotta get rid of that. We gotta figure that out." And so what they do, the first thing they do is they send you to a place called Old Olney.
Old Olney. Yeah, the situation is they need time to unscramble the coordinates that we got from the place that got orbital struck. And they're like, in the meantime, talk to Paladin Tristan again. He has a job for you. And Paladin Tristan, who's just hanging out in the Pentagon, is like, before the war, they were going to invent a Tesla coil. Go to Old Olney, where they were inventing the Tesla coil, and get us one of the Tesla coils they invented.
How have the Brotherhood of Steel not discovered the Tesla coil again?
I don't know.
it's the predominant use of the Tesla coil in our day and age is to make the hair stand up on fifth graders the world over at museums of science and technology. Like that is what they are used for
Mm-hmm.
in our universe. Oh, and also, I guess, on that fun aisle in Walmart that you could go to with all the lamps. So I don't know. I don't. This is just it's. Well, I guess I do know because he says, "Hey, if you get that Tesla coil, we'll make you a cool weapon." And to be fair, I did then use that weapon. Here's a real shocker for everybody. After Old Olney, which we'll talk about in just a second, I had to use a gun for the entirety of the rest of this thing because I'm sure it's possible to be a melee character and do this, but I didn't have enough healing healing items to do it, and you have to fight maybe 100 enemies.
Yep.
It's a lot of just raw Enclave soldiers who could like four-shot me. There's a lot of footage. Well, we'll get to it in just a minute. Tell me about your experience in Old Olney, Michael.
So Old Olney, the thing you need to know about this is that it's one of the little suburbs around DC that's now, broken down. And it's filled with death claws for some reason. Just tons and tons of death claws. And before you head out here, actually, one of the things that Tristan, I think it's Tristan who tells you this. He's like, oh, by the way, one of the scribes has got some sort of, I don't know, stupid gadget for you. You talk to Scribe Valancourt, and she gives you this thing that I can't remember the name of, but allegedly it allows you to control the Enclave-controlled death claws. So you'll remember way back at the end of the main game, I mentioned that they were like, obviously, like the Enclave was like collecting Deathclaw specimens and they were keeping them in Raven Rock. And I think by the end of that level, you could see that they were like trying to train the Deathclaws. They had like weird visors or I don't know, mind control things on them or something. And so she gives you this Deathclaw scrambler that's supposed to allow you to control Enclave-controlled Deathclaws, and then it gets marked on your map that there's like a little Enclave Deathclaw base near Old Olney. So I trek over there first, and by the time as I'm going up there, I just like kill two Enclave soldiers, and then there's just like one Deathclaw standing around that's not attacking me, and that's it. Like, I don't know if that Deathclaw was supposed to spawn inside of a cage and then fight some people, but like it was just one Deathclaw and it didn't really do anything. There's a terminal there though that you can hack and just get like a little note from one of the soldiers that's something about these Deathclaws, and a cute element is that the Enclave signs off their little email on that terminal with an ASCII American flag.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. That's good characterization.
It is, right? I liked that. I was like, okay, that's good. But then I booked it over to Old Olney, and Fox and I fought like, something on the order of 100,000 Deathclaws. And this is what you do. You like go into some basements and you walk around and you fight some Deathclaws and you pick up items and you fight some more Deathclaws. And eventually you I ran into these two ghouls named Wint and Kid.
Yeah.
And they are like, bye. Like, we're leaving. And that's all you can say to them. You just know that they're leaving. And I think actually I think it's Wint, actually, if you talk to him, he'll say a little bit more that they were like trying to find a place to settle aside from Underworld or whatever. But then you like you go past where they were, and this is kind of neat but also sort of perplexing. You see that they had obviously a whole bunch of ghouls had been trying to set up a new little encampment here, and as you're going through kind of the tunnels like in reverse order, you see the other 6 ghouls aside from the 2 you just met who got killed, and they all have names, and it's a strange decision because I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about all of these named characters who also like don't really have a story other than that they were ghouls who were here and then all I guess got killed by Deathclaws. But then you pop out and you hear some like vertibirds overhead. You're above ground now. You're like in an old abandoned hospital. So you hear the vertibirds and you're like, oh, great, there's Enclave. And yep, there is Enclave. So you fight a whole bunch of Enclave. And then you get into like the power works of Old Olney, which was also, I guess it's the town power plant, but also where they were doing military research. And it's filled with super hard robots. But I was hacking terminals and disabling them. But then I got lost in the power works because clearly you get to a point where there's a Tesla coil, but I have no idea how to pick this thing up. And I'm just like walking around looking for a thing I can interact with. And it turns out, I guess, that you have to jump down into the pit with the sparkling Tesla coil in order to pick it up.
Yeah, you didn't see those incredibly small switches?
I
Those
you know
micro
what?
switches right beside it?
You know what? I looked down into a pit filled with like bands of living electricity, and I did not think. I bet if I jumped down in there, I could turn it off.
What's very funny about our different reactions to that is I immediately jumped down in there. And then I couldn't see the switches, so I ended up wandering around still. And so eventually I made my way back into it. After I tried to pick the Tesla coil up several times without flipping the switches, and it just kills you immediately.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson. Exact same experience as you. This is just, these feel like to me, this is an experience I've had before in playing the Baldur's Gate games. This feels like the DLC to Baldur's Gate 2 in that it is extremely tuned, really hard encounters that are just here for you to be doing because they're hard.
Yeah.
There's no other reason on the planet to have you fight, and you're not exaggerating. There's probably 30 or 40 Deathclaws here. Would you like to guess how many Deathclaws I killed in this experience?
How many?
Well, give me a number. You guess.
I guess. And this is before we're using the gun, before we've broken Tonk's rule. Let's say you killed 17 Deathclaws.
I killed one Deathclaw.
You did not punch 17 Deathclaws to death? You just ran by them all?
I had to run by them all because I couldn't kill any of them. I mean, I theoretically could have, but when you get in melee distance, they can like 3-shot me sometimes, sometimes less, sometimes 1 or 2. And so, yeah, I mean, the benefit of being a gun-wielding character is that you don't have to get in melee range.
Yeah.
Which is the place where they hurt you the most. And so, yeah, what I did is I, like, used the level geometry to get around them. I, like, jumped around. I would, like, go in big loops in areas that loop back around to themselves to get around them. I used some stealth boys to stealth by. It took me forever, but I did it. And the reason I finally killed one at the very end is that I came up out of Old Olney from the ground, and from like the sewer grate or whatever, and there was a Deathclaw at the top, and I couldn't outrun him because it would close the distance too fast and it wouldn't de-aggro. And so I had to. My eventual solution was to run away from it while dropping landmines on the ground and then using stim packs to stay alive, and it would run over the landmine and it would blow up its own feet. And that's how I did it.
Well,
yeah.
I luckily had a little bit of a break here because I did a little side quest that I'm going to bet you didn't do.
No, I didn't.
Okay. I completed this because I accidentally started it way back when we did our first DLC. No, it was our first like post in-game episode when we were finishing up the base game quests. I think I mentioned in that episode that there was now a ghoul outside of Underworld who was selling what he called Aqua Cura. His name was Griffin, and he's like a sort of car salesman type, right? He's wearing like a sort of plaid sports jacket, and he's got frankly a Donald Trump wig, and he's talking to all these ghouls about how he's selling this thing called Aqua Cura that's straight from the Project Purity or whatever, and if ghouls drink it, it will like make them human again, basically, is the claim that he is making. and then you can buy some from him, and it is just straight up regular irradiated water. And he denies this when you try to talk to him about it. But then if you go to Project Purity, there's a guy there named like Scribe Bigsley or something, and he's a jerk who doesn't like his job. And he basically confirms for you that there are like caravans of clean water going out into the wasteland, and he kind of made and he, because he doesn't care, he's kind of like let sort of Griffin and his like other ghoul friends take over one of the caravan operations. And it turns out what they're doing is just like draining the water out of the regular like clean water bottles that the Brotherhood of Steel is distributing. They're like draining the clean water, and they're just filling it with regular irradiated water and then selling it to the ghouls as a wonder cure.
Huh.
And you find all of this out because you go over to his headquarters, which is in like the museum authorities building or something on the mall, and you shoot a bunch of ghoul mercenaries, and then you find a holotape where Griffin is explaining this whole operation to his cronies, and then you can go back to Underworld and confront him about it. And you have a couple of choices about what you can do, right? You can kind of like, make him cut you in on it and blah, 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 blah. But I chose to make him confess to his assembled crowd. And their response was to kill him. They chased him into a bathroom and beat him to death. And then I took 600 bottle caps and his wig, and I left.
Damn. Well, you know what? Later on, we'll talk about how many people I killed in the bathroom. So it all comes back around. Wait, so how did that impact your Old Only experience then?
Oh, none at all. It's just a nice little break. I just did it in between Old Only and the next quest.
Oh, I see. I misunderstood. I thought you were going to be like, I got the Aquakira acid, and I threw it in the face of all the,
I got the Aquakira acid, so now my character can like spit it from her mouth, like the Jurassic Park dinosaurs.
Yeah. Right on to Newman every time. Why isn't Newman in this game? Think about it.
Put Wayne Knight in Fallout 5.
Yeah, please put Wayne Knight in Fallout. What's he up to?
I don't know.
I bet he's listening.
Wayne, let us know.
Let us know in the comments, Wayne. So we do that, and then you go back, and they're like, yippee-ki-yay, you did a great job. Here's a weapon that we made out of that Tesla coil. Oh, no, they don't do that, actually.
No, they specifically do not do this. They are sure to do this in the most confusing way possible.
It is confusing. So they say, yeah, okay, fine. We have figured out these coordinates. It is a like big land carrier in an Air Force base.
Mm-hmm.
Go to it, and they give you like a complicated route. Basically, it takes you to that weird little train system under DC that's for like Congress members to bebop around in.
Yeah.
If you've ever like toured DC, it's a thing you can see.
Mm-hmm.
It's in this place is anyway. You got to go through it. You got to get to the Air Force Base, and when you get there, you can get the weapon. And at this point, I got a little character named, let me get her name right, Star Paladin Cross.
Wait. So hold on. You had no problem at all getting through the metro?
Oh no, let me get to the metro real quick.
Okay.
So I get Star Paladin Cross, and I don't have any problem getting to the actual like little. I go through the normal train system, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not the congressional train system. That little like monorail system under there. That's new to the DLC. I go there, and it's full of glowing ones and like feral ghoul high-level fellas and robots and everything on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a very long time to get through. I made it, but I did have to blow up Star Paladin Cross with grenades.
Aw. I'm sorry, yeah. Star Paladin Cross.
Yeah, she died.
Aw.
Yep.
So what is interesting about this particular leg of the DLC is that it takes you to the White House, which has been bombed into a pit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they do that because they're like, well, nothing in the main game makes the player go to the White House. And I guess it's kind of interesting to have to go to the White House and see that it's been bombed into a pit. But nevertheless, you end up underneath it. Um, and I ended up talking to the robot that runs it. Did you?
Mm. Tried to. Her name is like Margot.
Yes.
I did talk to Margot a little bit, and but I don't have good speech skill, and so it was just like, "Hey, please let me in. I'm not an intruder." And she was like, "I think you are." And I said, "No, I'm not." And she said, "Yeah, you are." And then she sicked all the rest of the stuff on me. So I don't know what'd she say. Is there something cool there?
Not particularly, other than I like managed. She was like, I don't recognize you as a user, and then I like verbally hacked her. Like I was just like, no, it was like a speech check, right? And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I am a an authorized user. And then she was like, oh, okay. And then she explains, yeah, that there's like something is wrong in the tunnels, right? There are like all these people like intruders who have no body heat but high radiation levels. But because I am now an authorized user, the robots are not going to attack me anymore, which is good, because that means the robots are going to help me fight all of these ghouls that I go down and encounter, much as you did. Except you know what? You know what, Cameron? You know what those ghouls do? They kill the robots. They destroy them because the feral ghoul reaver, of which there are like I think maybe a dozen down here. Uh, do you want to know some facts about the feral ghoul reaver?
Yeah, tell me. So I only had to encounter one. These are level scaling enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like an enemy position if you're at a certain level. So unfortunately, I think you're past that point. I know one thing about them. Can I give you my one fact and you can tell me all the other ones?
Sure.
My one fact is that they animate very weirdly, and so every time the one feral ghoul reaver that I dealt with appeared, it began radically glitching. Its entire torso wiggled around like an inflatable flailing tube man,
Mm-hmm.
but at 250 miles an hour. And so I never knew when it was attacking me or not, and so that's how I ended up blowing up Star Paladin Cross. Was that I just had to throw grenades at it.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I know.
So these are a new enemy to this DLC, as you might guess. They're like they look basically like regular ghouls, except they appear to be wearing like the remains of armor. And I think what we're supposed to understand is that these were like soldiers who became ghoulified or whatever. And with regard to their weird body language, or like the weird animation, I don't know if this is a glitch or if this is intended, if it's supposed to make them like scary, because they are also like super fast. But when I killed them, most of the time they had like psycho or jet on them. So I think the maybe implication is supposed to be is that like these were soldiers who became ghoulified and have just been like huffing war drugs for 200 years. um but yeah, no, they're super fast, and in my case, because I was a higher level than you, I guess, there's like a dozen of these things down here in these tunnels, and they are murderous because stealth doesn't work on them. They can see through stealth boys because they have super high perception.
Damn.
Also, do you want to know how many hit points they have?
I mean, approximately 1 billion as far as I know.
1,100. Do you want to know how many hit points the next highest hit pointed ghoul in the game has?
Probably like 200.
240.
They're 5 times the goal, okay?
Yeah. So I can't sneak by these things. And even if I wanted to, Fox is with me. So Fox is like drawing all this fire anyway. And I am just getting murdered because it's like, seven ghouls that are actually 4 times 7 ghouls are attacking me. And I'm getting exploded and blown up. And also, when they die, they will sometimes explode in like a little nuclear explosion. So if you kill one, but you're not far enough away, then you might get killed anyway. I ended up taking these out because somehow I got all of them to, like, I just stopped attacking them because I assumed the AI was going to be drawn to whatever was dealing the most damage. And luckily, Fox is kind of a a brick house, so to speak, he just like could stand in the corner with his minigun, going wah ha 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 ha, just like firing at them while they stand around him in a semicircle, taking turns swiping. And meanwhile, I'm throwing my grenades at them and blowing them up. And that's how I cleared out all of these freaking ghoul reavers, and it took forever, and I hated it. Yeah, and then you like get to the little tram that's going to take you to the Air Force base, but then you have to find a fuse to start it. And Margot will tell you that the fuse can be taken from one of the security robots that's in this area. And I don't know how you necessarily would put that together if Margot didn't tell you.
The robot was just right beside the switch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
For me, it was like the robot was like out in the hall and down a ways.
Nope, it was literally right beside the switch, and so I had to kill it anyway because it was right there. So I just because I killed the robot and then went and hit the switch, and it was like, you need a fuse, and so I just went back to loot the robot to go look for the real robot. There was like a main fuse on this Robo corpse. Yeah, so easy peasy, worked out fine. Yeah, I will, I'll say this, and this is going to hold for the rest of what we're going to talk about. I don't know what is gained by designing a game this way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't get it. Like creating a context in which just it's the same enemies, like feral ghoul reavers. They don't have any new moves, right? They're a little bit faster, but they just do the same stuff.
And they're bullet sponges.
And they're bullet sponges. They just got more health, and they hit harder. But they are not interesting. And I would say the same thing for any of these like higher level Enclave soldiers, right? They have some different guns occasionally, but they do the same stuff. They shoot you and they hide a little bit, and they shoot you and they hide a little bit. There is nothing gained by just adding a billion of them to the map, or by making them bullet sponges or anything like that. It is not interesting game design in any kind of way, and it feels like something from the mid-90s. It feels like the end of a Might and Magic game, or like a wizardry game, right? Where it's just like, oh yeah, this is a challenge run basically at this point of like seeing if you can do it. And that's like maybe the benefit here is that like this is, I guess Fallout 3 kind of feels like the last vestiges of that kind of thing. That doesn't really happen so much anymore outside of like hard modes. Now it's like, oh, there's going to be more enemy types, or giving them new moves, or at least creating new kind of combinations of the enemies that you've been playing with forever. And it really feels that way in this section with the, I ended up fighting a bunch of glowing ones. And they're a cool, change for the feral ghoul character, because they have a different moveset, right? They explode in radiation. They basically are attacking a completely different part of your stat block in order to deal with them. That's cool. Like, that's perfectly fine to me. But, Death Claws and feral ghoul reavers and even the super mutants, I didn't end up finding any of them here, but I know that we're going to run into, like, the highest level super mutant somewhere around in these DLC. And they're not interesting. It is just, you might as well just say, like, you have to stand in this circle for 30 minutes and you can't move, and you have to sit at the computer and you can't blink, and you just need to sit there for a little while and then you can proceed. Like, it's a thing that I just end up having to brute force by reloading the game over and over again and going for it again. It's bad. It is bad feeling. It's not interesting. It doesn't encourage me to play my character in different ways other than getting away from the cool specialty of melee weapons that I had. I guess that happens. Yeehaw.
Woo.
But yeah, so I don't know. I'm like, it's deeply unpleasurable game experiences, and not because of something interesting that was introduced, but because of something even more boring that was introduced. And I hated it. I hated every single moment of it. But then I got my Tesla gun.
I took a while to get my Tesla gun because what I forgot in the 45 minutes that it took me to take down all of these feral ghoul reavers or whatever, I forgot that one of the things they say to you before you head out on this mission is that there will be a supply box waiting for you at the Air Force base. And so I like come out into the Air Force Base and I'm just like looking around, and I think maybe even like the thing that pops up and says like look for the supply box, but like I don't know what the hell the supply box looks like. You've never asked me to look for a supply box once in this game. What am I looking for? So I wander around and get killed a bunch, but then I also end up finding the Tesla gun, which is like slightly to the left of the place where you enter.
Yeah, it's I found it because there's a big parachute like stuck to it. It looks like the Metal Gear Solid 1 when you find out that someone, I don't want to spoil Metal Gear Solid 1 for anybody, but when someone has parachuted out of a Hind D and survived, it looks very similar to that for some reason. It's like parachute attached to a wall. But yeah, I got that, and it's pretty cool. It shoots a big ball of lightning that blows up and feels like it should one-shot everything it hits, and it doesn't.
No.
It like two-shots them maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not good at using it, but it does more damage and is more safe to use than my sledgehammer, and so I'm just using it.
Yeah, and so now we're at the Air Force Base, which is just this massive, massive map. And there's like a whole plan to this, right? So the Enclave is in this land carrier, and there's supposed to be like we have to get to a place that will let us open up the land carrier, and there's going to be some sort of Brotherhood of Steel distraction, like some Brotherhood of Steel members are going to come in and distract the Enclave so we can do our thing. I never saw the distraction. I'm not sure where it is. I might have accidentally blown the distraction up with some missiles, because there's a point in this level where you're like standing on this catwalk looking out over like like a runway or whatever, or like a space between some like the warehouses and things, and you can hit a button and it will cause like little missiles to rain down, and there's a bunch of Enclave soldiers out there running around like tiny little ants, but they also might have been Brotherhood of Steel soldiers, because everyone in this fight is just people in power armor. So I don't really know who I blew up. Blowing up all those people down there on the tarmac didn't seem to help me a lot. I ended up having to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, my impression, I also didn't see the distraction, but the way I understood it, and this could be absolutely wrong, but the way I understood it is that there would be more Enclave there to fight if they weren't distracting them somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Well, that would make sense. I was confused because I was like, am I supposed to be meeting up with people? Because again, this map is big, and I don't want to say there's a lot of stuff in it, because there really isn't. There's just like, you go into this place and it's like, oh, here are some more death claws, and you could let these death claws out if you wanted to, but then I would have to fight the death claws and all the Enclave soldiers. And by this point, I am also running really low on healing items. I am running low on ammo, except for ammo for the Tesla gun, but I also don't know if I should be conserving ammo for the Tesla gun, because they've given it to me and it feels like it should have a special role in what's happening here, but spoiler alert, it doesn't.
No, not at all. The interesting thing about this is that this is designed, this pushes even more on our confusion about Operation Anchorage, because it is designed exactly the same way as Operation Anchorage, but without any of the benefits of Operation Anchorage. So, for example, glowing red things that just replenish all your health.
Yeah,
that's still here, but it's in the form of like small med kit boxes everywhere that have like 2 stim packs in them, which are insufficient to heal me in any kind of way at this point in the game. And so it's almost like they're like, ha ha ha, we're parodying Call of Duty. Now let's make one, but worse.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I had the same thought, especially considering like where this goes and how it ends, because it is just like, you said in the Operation Anchorage episode that on its face, that didn't the critique of the individualized FPS military hero didn't quite work because Fallout 3 as a game already had the Chosen One narrative. And now somehow they've like whipped back around, and now they're undermining whatever points they had even actually managed to make with Operation Anchorage, because now it's just like, yeah, no, you're the one person in the entire military who could possibly do this.
Yeah, and go on a very linear, hallways and warehouses mission to go and do it. I would say the vast majority of my experience here. So what you do is you have to, like you said, you have to open up the land carrier, and then you got to go in the land carrier. When you open up the land carrier, there's a bathroom there, and so that's free health. And so literally what I did is I would go out and I would shoot as many enemies as I could until like my health got low. And then I would run back inside, and then I would drink out of the toilet or whatever until my health was full. And by the time I'd done that, they had all come in the room with me, following me. And so I would just shoot. I would just stand in the bathroom and shoot them from the bathroom and kill them all, and then drink a little bit more and wait for more people to come. And if they didn't, I would go outside and lure more people in. I did that here. When I went out to the land carrier and went through the land carrier, I ended up doing the exact same thing. Eventually, I ended up just standing in the bathroom on like the second story and going outdoors and luring people in and just throwing grenades onto the ground right in front of them, and they blew up.
Point of view, you are an Enclave soldier. A massive guy with mutton chops throws a grenade at you. It explodes a little bit away. It doesn't really do any damage, but the guy's like, hey, follow me. And he turns around, he goes running off. You follow him. He's gone into the bathroom. You follow him into the bathroom. He is drinking out of the toilet. He whips around before you can react and shoots you with a Tesla coil.
Yeah. That is 100% what happened. I probably killed 35 to 50, somewhere in there, Enclave soldiers with Gatling guns and flamethrowers and all kinds of stuff by shooting them in the bathroom doorway. And that's kind of it. It is interesting to me here, too, that this is yet another moment of recreating Fallout 2.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of a oil platform, it's a land carrier.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's like, here's the big Enclave base. It's extremely difficult to navigate. Every room looks the same. Mm-hmm. There's no way to determine where you're supposed to be going with these map markers. Like, it's a truly difficult place to navigate. And you have to get on the roof, so you got to, like, find these, like, ladders or whatever.
Did you meet Stiggs?
Yeah, so I was about to ask you about that guy.
What was your experience with Stiggs?
He like shows that he's like a robot repairman, and he's like, I'm just following orders.
He's just like, the Enclave picked me up when I was dying of radiation, and then they like nursed me back to health, and then they were like, in repayment, you have to like service our robot army.
Yeah, I don't know who at Bethesda was like, let's see if we can get a character in here with the Eichmann defense to really just complicate the morality here. Like maybe all these Enclave guys aren't so bad. Let's have him say he's just following orders.
Yeah, so he ends up telling me that, like, if I get to the mainframe, I can hack that and turn all of the robots against the Enclave. And I'm like, cool, thanks for the info. And then he's like, well, I'm going to steal some of the robots and leave now. Bye. Like, I'm leaving the Enclave. I'm like, all right, that's great for you. And then I unlike you in some ways, I just stopped fighting things by this point in the DLC. I was not really I would shoot people if I had to, but mostly I was just like running through trying to get it done. So I like ran around until I found the mainframe, and then I hacked it. I turned all the robots hostile to the Enclave, and so now the Enclave has to deal with the robots, but it doesn't really matter because they're still trying to shoot me too. And then eventually, yeah, I get to the roof.
Yeah, I did like when he left, though, and he was like, come on, Sparky, or whatever, and like just two robots go with him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's got like a robot crew.
Yeah.
It's the Incredible Journey. but with this guy and his two robots.
The cut DLC is when you take on the role of Stiggs and his two robot friends as they travel across the countryside.
That would be so much better. I mean, can you imagine something like that? Think Operation Anchorage, right? Like, you got to go into a VR simulation, but it's like a like survival mod style, like weird Fallout experience where it's like you and your two robots and you just got to go across the desert.
You and your two robots are stuck on a satellite, and a mad scientist is making you watch bad movies.
Yeah, and you get the Fallout 4 dialogue wheel occasionally, and you don't really know what you're going to be saying, but you're going to be saying something.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be okay. There's some sort of a rotating cast of characters. Yeah, from season to season, you feel quite a bit different. But yeah, you go on the roof, and lo and behold, I don't know if you're ready for this, Michael, but I'm going to spoil something for you. There's more goddamn robots and Enclave up here. Like, you would not believe the disappointment that happened to me as I... Oh, and even worse, as you get up here, vertibirds land and drop off more Enclave. Yeah. I just, every time it happened, I was like, who thought this was a good idea? Who was sitting there at their desk in 2000 and late 2008, early 2009, and was like, yeah, I think they need to fight 6 more Enclave Hellions. I don't understand, what they would want to be doing in this moment other than fighting Enclave Hellions. Let's do it. Let's get those dudes in there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a challenge for them, the player. They're going to love it. I don't know. It's depressing. It makes me sad.
It is. It's super depressing. And then you get like the control panel for their orbital bombardment thingamajig. And it's just so weird because you can you can target like the Pentagon, which is where the Brotherhood of Steel is, Megaton. I think you can also target like it's a weird list of places, but then you can
Rivet
also
City is one.
Yeah, Rivet City, and then you can also target the specific place where the control system is.
Yes,
which seems like, going out on a limb here, I'm not, a genius military engineer, but you maybe don't want to be able to program the orbital strike to hit the like where you're programming the orbital strike. I don't know.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to have that on like orbital strike speed dial, I don't think. Maybe leave the coordinates open. You never know, right? There might be something going on where you got to get rid of your own land carrier. I understand that, but when I'm thinking of speed dial, I'm thinking pizza. I'm thinking local Chinese restaurant.
Yeah. It's like, I'm sick of it. Rivet City needs to go now.
Yep, exactly. Boom, like beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop boop. People, youngins won't know what that sound is, but that's the sound of a manual speed dial going back in the day. But yeah, so you do that. I didn't try to blow up any other places. Does it like give you an error message? Did you try?
I did not try, but I looked it up. So apparently you can blow up the Brotherhood of Steel headquarters in the Pentagon, which is the bad ending for this. But it's also the very, very funny ending to imagine you going through the entire Fallout 3 campaign and then on to this DLC with everyone in the Brotherhood of Steel being like, you honor us with your presence. And they're like, only you can help us against the Enclave. Only you have the knowledge. Only you are strong enough. And then you get to the orbital laser control panel and you're like, bye, Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah, it really is the kind of thing where it's like that only exists as like a trolling option. There's no narrative or logical space in which that makes sense in this universe. It only exists so that the people who like loved blowing up Megaton and hate Moira, it's so those like very extremely trollish players can like get the Brotherhood of Steel and laugh about it, right?
Right.
I have we gotten away from that in games? I think we have, right?
I'm not sure because I stopped playing AAA games a while back, and so I can't really say.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Can you do it No Man's Sky?
You can destroy every procedurally generated planet in No Man's Sky. It's just like you open it up and it's like, oh no, am I gonna blow up Vexatroth 77 or am I going to blow up Vacuum Toilet 9?
Vacuum Toilet 9 is, and everyone's walking around like, you honor us with your presence. We're honored by you, No Man's Sky. No Man.
And you can't blow up Megaton or Rivet City. Those won't go through. So you can only blow up the land crawler where you are, or the Brotherhood of Steel base.
Okay.
But of course, I chose to blow up the land crawler where I was, and then it's like, hey, you should get out of here because it's about to be nuked. And then you get out, and a vertibird lands, and our old friend Sarah Lyons comes out, and she's like, hey, it's me, your old friend Sarah Lyons. And you can be like, wow, I'm so glad you're better, because also a thing that we were told way back at the beginning, after Elder Lyons woke us up and patted our heads gently, he said that Sarah was still not doing well, right? She was like still sleeping or whatever. So now we get a kind of we close off that loop, right? We get our emotional beat of seeing Sarah Lyons again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hop on the vertibird and we fly 300 yards away and land again so we can get out of the vertibird and watch the nuke fall.
It is really weird because the guy's like, the pilot, you hear his voice and he's like, all right, I'm gonna put this bad boy down so we can watch the fireworks. And it's like, I don't want to. I just want to go back home. Just take me away from here. I don't need to watch this thing blow up, but it was lovingly animated. Whoever did it did a great job of watching that land crawler blow up.
Mm-hmm. And you got like the soldiers out there with their like hands over their heads in the celebratory animation. Again, feels very like we've passed through the looking glass and this is just kind of a weird Call of Duty game now. Because they're like, oorah, yeah, we killed the Enclave.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. Like, I feel very confident now here at the end of what is, all of the canonical plot. There's some DLC left for us to do. But this is the end of the plot of Fallout 3. I'm going to go out on a limb. It's going to be controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Fallout is not satire.
I haven't considered that before, but after playing
I've left
this...
it open. I've left it open. I've said repeatedly, every time it's come up, I've said, our opinions might change on this. We might get new information. It's kind of like, sitting there in the courtroom and like someone runs in, with a manila envelope.
I have 900 letters to Santa Claus.
Exactly. But here's the thing. There is no more admissible evidence. Fallout is not satire. It was never satirical. It did not ever have a more nuanced take on nukes or post-nuclear stuff or, I don't know, post-apocalyptic commentary. It is exactly 100% par for the course for all of the other media of its type and is often measurably worse because it doubles down on the things that people sometimes say that it is critiquing.
Mm-hmm.
That is the final word, I believe, on any kind of nostalgia that anyone could have for these games around them being somehow better than they are in their memory. They are not.
Well, I'm glad we settled that.
That's how I feel. You know what, Michael? I'll let you disagree.
I mean, I don't disagree, right? Like,
yeah.
by the time you are watching a nuke fall on your enemy's headquarters while soldiers stand around you, like pumping their arms in the air, and there is not any sort of hint that this is like supposed to be taken as anything other than like, yes, I have accomplished the player goal of defeating the enemy. Like, you are correct, right? Like, it's just whatever pretense it might have had for satire is not, it can try to be satirical, right? And I'm sure we're going to get some attempts at satire after this. But it's not satire that can be trusted, right? Because satire necessarily sort of implies a kind of broader moral or ethical program that it's trying to communicate. And Fallout just doesn't have that. It never has had that. I think people have mistaken it for satire because it tends to be wacky.
Yeah, yes. Sometimes it's funny.
It would be like watching Mad Max, and if Mad Max was wearing a big colorful party hat the entire time, and everyone was like, wow, Mad Max sure is satirical.
I love it when that guy who looks like Mick Jagger is running around in his white pants and his big party hat. Well, yeah, I would say, like I said earlier, this is probably one of the most disappointing and bad experiences I've ever had in a game. And at the end of the day, right, like I have a lot of questions about the design and effect of this, but ultimately I think a lot of those are answered by the fact that this thing was made in a very short amount of time by people who were under an immense amount of pressure, because, people were so angry about the end of Fallout 3 and they needed to make this DLC to like kind of figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I understand, I think on a mechanical level, why things shake out the way they do. And I understand why you would make just a bunch of like challenge dungeons to kind of give people something to do. And we're going to see that again in Point Lookout, by the way. I remember a lot of it having the same vibe, even though there's more variedness to it. I think whatever the goal was here, it did not successfully allow me to have a good or interesting time, and that's a bummer.
Yeah, and it was especially sad for me because I was thinking after the pit. Actually, maybe I had this thought during the pit or during the end of that. I was thinking like, oh, Fallout is really interesting to me again. After having done all of these games, the feeling of getting into the DLC and experiencing content that I just simply had not seen before, especially with the pit, there was this sense of like, okay, like things can happen now to kind of like shake up my memory or like shake up my thoughts in ways that they might not have been happening before because so much of what we were doing was just revisiting. And then immediately we get to Broken Steel, and I'm like, well, the fact that now Fallout could be anything also means it could be something as boring as this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we've got 2 other pieces of DLC to go. We have, is it Point Lookout first?
Yes, Point Lookout and then Mothership Zeta.
Mm-hmm. Which Mothership Zeta is going to be a real weird thing to end on, because you've never played it, and it was weird at the time, and my memory of it is it's extremely weird, even now. So, yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be talking about Point Lookout. We it's been floated in the Discord. Someone suggested that we might think about doing 2 episodes on Point Lookout because it's apparently pretty big, but we'll check that out, and then we'll determine what's up with that. And Michael, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on twitter.com at Warren is Dead.
If you enjoyed the show, you enjoy listening to it, and you enjoy listening to us be sad, you can go to patreon.com/rangetouch. The link is in the description down below. You can support us there for as little as $1 a month. We are in the middle of a drive to 1025, where we're trying to get to 1,025 supporters. However much money is up to you. We're just trying to get to that number of supporters, and doing so would mean that we would start a show on Homestuck, where Michael guides me through all of Homestuck. So if you want to hear something that's like Too Much Future, but it's us digging through the, trash heap of early 2000s internet culture, that's going to be the show.
Yep.
And we're about somewhere in the 300 range away from that right now.
We are less than 300. We're in the 200 some. Like we dipped below 300 a couple days ago, so we are well on our way.
Wow. So you could be you. If you're listening and you're thinking, hey, I like this show. I like this show for a $1 a month amount to support it. Think about doing this to help us get there. If you support this show at $3 a month or more, then you can get an RSS feed if you don't want to watch the video on YouTube and you just want to listen to it on podcasts. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about Point Lookout. I think there's a catchphrase, Michael.
War never changes, but Fallout does.